Hey everyone, how goes it? I'm your instructor, Dr. J.J. Shepard, and welcome to Computer Science 552 Game Development. Today, we're going to begin our discussion by focusing on the core topic at hand, the process that includes game design and game development. Pressing start, our goal is creating a game, and before we can get to that, let's understand what we're creating by examining a very brief history. Games have been around since ancient times and have been an integral part of every culture. Even before written history, we had games and sports such as tests of strengths, races, and various combat sports that are commonly depicted on pottery and other forms of art. From there, we could take a short trip through history and notice that every civilization has had games associated with them. Within the classic Mesopotamia region and parts of Africa, we can see that within Assyria, Babylon, ancient Egypt, and ancient civilizations, they all had games, such as Senet, and Mancala. In other regions, such as East Asia, we see games like Go emerging throughout history, and within the American empires, we can see sports like Olematsali or Paktapak. Our history shows how important playing games have been to our evolution. Some have argued that games may have signaled the evolution of more complex human activities. We can both see this in humans and animals. For instance, in order to participate in a game, we must play. We see that other animals demonstrate these play actions without having some sort of formal written communication. Video games started to emerge as early as the 1950s. The genesis of video games can be traced to initial research in human-computer interactions. There may have been other electronic games that occurred sooner, but sadly, many of those have been disassembled and lost to time. Games are the largest entertainment industry, beating both music and movies combined. This has been true for many years and continues to be true today. This is based on the information provided by the Entertainment Software Association, the ESA. In teaching games for a while, there are some misconceptions I need to address before moving forward. As silly as it sounds, playing a game is very different from creating a game. I know this may come across as facetious, but many people assume that because they enjoy playing games, they will also enjoy creating them. However, they are very much two different interests, and there's nothing wrong with favoring one over the other. Alongside of that, many incorrectly assume that creating a game is similar to playing a game. This is also very much not true. Producing and consuming are two very different actions. It would be similar to saying that I like to eat food, so I must like to prepare food. We can understand that these are two very different sets of actions, and most people enjoy one over the other. Playing a game can be difficult and time-consuming, but rewarding. I believe we can all understand getting lost in a game and the entertainment being rewarding. Yet we can also understand that enjoyment can be derived from creating too, and this is why making a game can be difficult and time-consuming, but is rewarding in a different way. Creating or producing a game is an intricate, detailed process which requires a developer to be a Renaissance person, which simply means knowing how to combine both arts and sciences together. This is essential to creating a game. We need to be able to do both to be successful, or at least give it our best. As mentioned, creating a game is an intricate, detailed process. Now, process, this term comes up a lot, both in computing and in creating media. We should understand that a process is a series of actions that lead to some kind of goal or end. We will learn that there are processes which contain other processes themselves, and creating a game is one of those processes. However, there is not one correct way to make a game, but we know that clear, effective communication is required for every part of this process. For instance, game designers communicate to the developers the game concept. The developers need to understand what kind of game is being created and what it features. Programmers communicate with the machines via code to implement the game. We know from programming courses that programming languages are used to communicate to the machines we call computers. Artists communicate to the players the emotion of the game using story, visual, and sound elements. Producers communicate to the publishers about why the game should be promoted. Publishers must communicate to the consumers to sell the game. It is the publisher's job to let the consumer know why they should part with their money. Write it down, draw it out, whatever it takes to make your ideas clear. There is not one correct way to do this, but we do need to communicate to get anywhere. Now, let's focus on the overall process, while keeping in mind that communication is always key. The goal of developing most games is to take it from an idea and bring it to the consumers to play. Creating or producing a game requires the idea to first be designed and then developed. Publishing brings a developed game to the consumer. Taking a more in-depth look at the game production process, we can see that it has more steps involved. Game production is the process of creating a game from an idea, which includes game design and game development. As we will learn, game design and development are two different processes. Game development is the implementation of the game concept, which requires combining arts and sciences, so be a Renaissance person. We know that our goal is to create this thing called a game. We know that communication is key. However, what exactly is a game? Defining a game is not quite as simple as it sounds, and it is a topic that we will explore in future lectures. For now, we can consider all games are systems in which players attempt to reach their objectives by using procedure or processes defined by rules which establish how resources can be used to reach their objective. Where conflict exists which impedes reaching their objective, and where boundaries exist creating a space to play to finally reach some quantifiable outcome. This definition helps us understand that all games have the following formal elements: players, objectives, procedures, rules, resources, conflict, boundaries, and outcome. As an exercise, consider how these formal elements apply to an obvious game like tic-tac-toe versus solving a derivative for a calculus course or analyzing a poem for an English course. Beyond formal elements, games also contain dramatic elements. We know that dramatic elements relate to drama, which is a series of interesting or intense events related to conflicting forces. This is a way that games emotionally engage the player. Some dramatic elements of games include challenge and play. Both of these are fundamental to all games, and so all games present challenge and play as a dramatic element. We get emotionally involved when we're trying to reach a goal in a game that is facilitated by play. Otherwise, we would not become so upset when we lose in a very close contest. In addition, characters, premise, and story act as additional supporting elements that can emotionally engage a player. Not all games need characters or a story, but it can be useful to make the play more meaningful to the player. We may have noticed that in both formal and dramatic elements, the concept of play was mentioned. However, what is play? And how does that relate to games? This is also more difficult than it appears, but the concept of play has been explored for a considerable amount of time. For the most part, we can consider what Johann Huizinga had mentioned in his defining the play concept. In his work Homo Ludens, he defines the play concept as having 5 characteristics. Play is free and freedom. Play is separate from ordinary life. Play is distinct from ordinary life in both location and duration. Play creates order, absolute and supreme. Play is connected to no material interest and no profit can be gained from it. This is a very important work in the exploration of both play and games, and there are many concepts from this work that will appear many times over in this course. I do strongly recommend that you don't just take my word for it, try it. While defining games and play is going to require more discussion, we can easily understand how important play is related to games. Based on how we play, we can at least start defining the different kinds of games. We can start defining the kinds of games based on the things that we are interacting with. All games generally have some physical component: pawns, dice, boards, cards, voice, etc. When a game only has physical components, they may be considered card games, board games, tabletop games, folk games, parlor games, sports. These are considered to be physical games. In relation, a video game implies that it is an extended version of a game that provides a visual element via video screen. Just like physical games, these still contain the formal elements: players' objectives, procedures, rules, resources, conflict, boundary, and outcome. They also contain the dramatic elements: challenge, play, characters, premise, and story. Seems simple enough until we start to consider, do all games have video? As strange as it may seem, let's look historically at the game Oregon Trail 1971. Originally, this was designed to use a teletype printer for its output. This would not be considered a video output, but we can still assume that Oregon Trail is a video game that started with no video. Also, another game, Johann Sebastian Joust, or JS Joust for short, was a game that debuted roughly in 2012 and then was featured in the 2014 game Sports Friends. This game had no meaningful visual display and relied only on audio and motion controls. Yet, both of these would be considered video games. In contrast, with a purely physical games, some games have an electronic component: video screens, joysticks, speakers, motion sensors, etc. Electronic components can either be analog or digital, simply meaning that it receives input either as a continuous function like a wave or just zeros and ones. A game with any electronic component is considered to be an electronic game. This in fact may include some classically considered board games that feature electronic components such as Mall Madness, Dream Phone, or Ask Xandar. However, colloquially, a video game or computer game is a game with some electronic component and is generally interchangeable with electronic game. We understand what a game must have, and our goal is to create a video game. While knowing these definitions are important, we always need to leave room for some interpretation. Not everything has clearly defined lines, and we should allow for some creative space for exploration. Within the space of all games, there are several common related games called genres. A genre is a category of some artistic work that is characterized by a particular form or content. For game genres, these are typically games that feature common interactions, objectives, and outcomes. Sometimes I will lump this all together into the term playstyle. The top-level major game genres include action, adventure, puzzle, role-playing, simulation, strategy, casual, hardcore games. Crossover between genres is very common. We can see this in one of the major genres being action-adventure. These used to be two distinct genres, but there were so many games that featured crossover elements that it warranted being its own. Many games feature elements commonly found in many different game genres. Within genres, there are subgenres, and within those subgenres, there are sub-subgenres. Taking a look at each major one, we can see what defines its qualities, and also start to recognize that many games we know do not just fall into these genres, but other subgenres within those groups. The first is fairly large, and this genre is called action games. Action games focus on physical challenges which commonly require strong dexterity and hand-eye coordination. Some common subgenres of action games are platformers, shooters, fighting, stealth, survival, and rhythm, which was formerly considered as puzzle games. Within action, we can see these subgenres in even their subgenres. Platformer games focus on jumping and climbing around an environment. They can be fixed screen, side-scrolling, or Metroidvania. All describe different properties of the subgenre of platform games. Shooter games feature players launching projectiles toward adversaries. First-person shooters, third-person shooters, shoot-em-ups, or shmups are common subgenres of the shooting game. Fighting games are primarily about close-quarter combat, typically between two, sometimes more opponents. 2D, 3D, arena, beat-em-ups all describe different versions of this game genre, which typically rely on the type and number of opponents. Stealth games take a different approach to action games and focus more on avoiding direct conflict by sneaking and other hiding mechanics. Survival games focus on the player lasting as long as possible by carefully managing their limited resources against the odds. These would include survival horror and battle royale games. Rhythm games focus on testing the player's timing with music-based challenges. These were formerly considered puzzle games. Adventure games is a genre that features puzzles and problem solving, while not relying on dexterity, timing, or hand-eye coordination like in action games. Some subgenres are text adventures, graphic adventures, visual novels, interactive movies, real-time 3D adventures. Commonly, these are motivated by an overall story like the hero's journey or a mystery. Action-adventure games are a genre that features elements common to both action and adventure games. Action gameplay, adventure story, and setting. This combination of two popular genres is so popular that it warranted becoming its own. Subgenres of this include survival horror, which focuses on fear as a key motivator. Metroidvania, which shares qualities of exploration, skill and equipment acquirement, and backtracking for further exploration, which was popularized in both the games Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo and Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the PlayStation, which is why it's called Metroidvania. Puzzle games primarily focus on solving problems and challenge the player's mental acuity. Common subgenres include logic, physics, programming games, hidden object, escape room games, puzzle platformers, once again combining this genre with another. Role-playing games put the player in the role of a character who gains strength and experience by overcoming challenges. This is based heavily on tabletop RPGs, such as Dungeons & Dragons, Ultima, and Vampire the Masquerade. In these games, the player typically starts by creating a character, assigning properties called stats or statistics. These can be selected or randomly assigned. Experience is typically implemented by using a system called experience points, or XP for short. In other types of RPGs, the character has already been created and their stats have been assigned. The importance is the experience earned by completing the task. Some of the common subgenres are action RPGs. Another hybrid genre, like a puzzle platformer, we find these mixed together with action and adventure, but also add elements like experience points. MMORPG, which are massively multiplayer online RPGs. Roguelite are based on a semi-graphical text adventure game called Rogue, or Rogue Exploring the Dungeons of Doom. These games randomly place objects and randomly generate the layout of its dungeons. A tactical RPG puts significance on placement of units and characters in the game. Unlike other RPGs, location is the most critical in a tactical RPG. Monster or beast tamers emphasize training creatures to perform some task or battle. Simulation games mimic the real-life topic and the associated actions as closely as possible. Popular subgenres include construction and management simulation, farming and job simulation, life simulation, vehicle simulation, and sports. Strategy games challenge the player's long-term planning skills and their ability to adjust and adapt plans in reaching an overall goal. Common subgenres are based on whether it is played in real time or do the players take turns. We can see this in real-time strategies and turn-based strategies, where its play is about leading a group of characters by giving them orders to strategically acquire, maintain, use, and defend resources in order to build structures, discover new technologies, and achieve some larger goal. We can also see this reflected in real-time tactics and turn-based tactics. These are similar in nature, but commonly removes the need to acquire resources. We also notice that turn-based tactics typically crosses over with the RPG genre. Tower defense has similar concepts as well, but puts the player solely on a defensive role. Game genres can also relate to a game's difficulty. Casual games and hardcore games can be any other genre, and more elicit the initial learning curve, accessibility, time commitment, and overall difficulty of the game. Casual games typically are not highly difficult, do not require much time commitment, and are easy to pick up and play. Sandbox, creative, open-world games are considered to be casual games or have casual features. Hardcore games have much higher learning curves, which require more extensive time commitments. Much like other media, like music or movies, there are even more genres, subgenres, and sub-subgenres of games. We must keep in mind the key idea is that a genre only describes what is commonly expected of a game type. Common playstyles, common features, common mechanics, and goals. We need to know these terms so we can better communicate our ideas with other people. Creating a game requires communicating concepts to team members, and selling a game requires communicating the concepts to the consumers. Being aware of these terms help us better describe the games that we will be creating. We will also learn that the formal and dramatic elements play a factor in all of these as well. Another set of terms we should know revolve around the game's platform. Video games require computer hardware and software to operate. A video game platform is the entire collection of the required hardware and software components needed to play a video game. Common game platforms include PC, personal computers, consoles like PlayStation, Nintendo Entertainment System, Magnavox Odyssey, handheld or mobile like the Game Gear, iPhones, Android, etc., arcade, browser-based games, and XR, which is mixed reality combining both VR and AR, augmented reality. Platforms are a major consideration when planning to create a game, and it is useful to be aware of the major platforms and what they provide. In this lecture, we have focused on defining a game, defining video games, and reviewing various video game genres and platforms. Now that we know about games, we can start effectively communicating our ideas and start making games. With all that being said, start thinking about what kind of games you want to create, and I'll speak at you soon. Now it's time for a bonus round. Let's test our knowledge with some quick trivia. What is key to all parts of the game production process? Communication is key to all of this. What are the formal elements found in all games? Players, objectives, procedures, rules, resources, conflict, boundaries, and outcome. What are the dramatic elements found in all games, and what are the dramatic elements found in some? Challenge and play are found in all games, while characters, premise, and story are found in some. What are the 5 characteristics that define the play concept? Play is free and play is freedom. Play is separate from ordinary life. Play is distinct from ordinary life both in location and duration. Play creates order, absolute and supreme. Play is connected with no material interest and no profit can be gained from it. What are some of the major game genres? Action-adventure, puzzle, role-playing, simulation, strategy, hardcore, and casual. Finally, a quick exercise to demonstrate that we know more than just trivia, we know how to apply it. Think about a game that you enjoyed and describe how the formal elements and the dramatic elements played a role in your enjoyment. And think about how you would describe this to someone else.